So, welcome everybody. We're here with episode 10 of the Mile 99 interview series. This is our, as many of you know, but some of you may not, this might be your first time joining. It's our bi-weekly series now, where we sit down with a usually local ultra runner, somewhere in the Sacramento up to Truckee kind of region, Reno in some cases, and talk to them about their running career, how they got started in running, some of the races they're doing, and just kind of like helping us build our community while a lot of us are still out there kind of working on solo runs and really not getting to see as many of the people that we normally do from time to time. This was really a brainchild of my co-host, Mike Turner. His idea was to just talk to people that we really want to find out more about and hear about their experiences and get some advice from them and just get inspired. I think we've been able to achieve that over the last few months. So tonight we're really happy to welcome Helen Pelster. She's an ultra runner from Truckee, California, up in the mountains, and we've been sort of hearing some things about her lately, and we'll get into those. She's been really accomplishing some amazing things, especially up on the Tahoe Rim Trail, as well as many other races out in the world over the last few years. So we're really happy to have her with us, and thanks a lot for joining us, Helen.
Hi, Greg. Thanks so much for having me, and Mike and Jessica for helping out. It's great to be here.
Excellent. I'm glad you made the time. Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to mention we have Jessica Harris. She's one of our real regulars here, and she's helping us out behind the scenes, and she's working with all the audience members and collecting questions and just generally keeping everything flowing on that end. So as we normally do, we'll talk for a while to Helen, and then at the end of the hour, we'll have some audience Q&A, and we'll be looking to Jessica to get some questions, some really good questions from our audience, and getting them to either read them to us, or she can read them for them. So thanks again. So yeah, just jumping right in. I also want to make sure that I mention the fact that this is being helped and promoted by the Auburn Aid Station. This is our local running/beer store, and Paulo Medina has been one of our hosts over the last number of episodes. Now that we're kind of getting things back off the ground, he's focusing really on his business right now. We fully support that, and just want to make sure to give a shout out to the Auburn Aid Station, and you can visit them at auburnaidstation.com. They have an online store. If you ever need anything shipped to you, or if you're local, you can come pick it up. So I just want to make sure that we give him a little shout out, and hopefully he's getting things back. We can't quite drink beer in the store right now, but hopefully soon. So anyway, with that said, yeah, I mentioned briefly, Helen lives up in Truckee. She's been on the scene now, I think according to you, about 12 years, if I'm not mistaken. And as I normally do, I like to just kind of get a sense of what was the genesis of your running career? How did you get your start? What other types of things were you looking at the time? Like, what drew you to running initially?
That's a great question, and I think my answer is the same as probably literally millions of other people. I just had our second kid, and I was looking for a way to lose weight. So I had a babysitter come in the evenings routinely so I could go to the gym, and it wasn't really doing enough, just going to the gym and going through the motions. And I had never been a runner, and I thought that I couldn't be. I thought that I wasn't. So but I got on the treadmill, and I was like, yeah, I know, like, this is really the way to lose weight. And it was that very evening, I went back and I sent the babysitter home and got on the computer and looked at my email. And I had just literally been thinking, running is really a good way to lose weight. And a girlfriend, one of my mom friends, we were really tight. We all had little babies. She said, there's this really great half marathon, and it's only like April. We have all year until October to train for it. God, if I would have known how hard it'd be to run 13 miles, there's no way I would have said yes. But I was like, yes, I'm in. it's serendipity. I was just thinking about running more.
Hmm.
And that's really how it started. And in October, and we crossed the finish line together with my girlfriend. And I remember telling her at mile 12, I said, uh, remind me of this. I don't think I ever want to do a marathon. And here we are.
And here you are. And we'll get to some of those longer distances. And I mean, yeah, it sounds like, I mean, from the other folks that we've talked with over the last, number of weeks and months, I mean, it always starts that way. And it did for me. And I think a lot of people on the call is just, what do you mean I can run a half marathon? That sounds incredible. And then once you do it, you just have that next level and that next level, and it just keeps going up from there. Did you have any type of training plan during that April to October timeframe? Like, what were you doing to prepare for it at that point?
Literally like something I downloaded from the internet, and
Mm-hmm.
I just followed it. I'll never forget the day I ran 5 miles. Like, it was huge. It was like it's such a huge accomplishment.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And so, I mean, when you were in that half marathon and you got to the finish line, like, did you immediately think, yes, okay, like this is the start of something? Or was that kind of like, okay, I got that done? Like, what was the next step after that?
I didn't think. I was just happy to be done. I was pretty tired.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I was already tired at mile 12. And so uh, I don't I don't remember revisiting it really. I kept running, and I did the same half marathon a year later. But that next year then is really when things exploded. And I was really inspired by my mom's cousin, who is about 60, and she's a marathon maniac. That's an actual thing. I'm not just saying she's a maniac. For those of you who don't know.
If you Google it, you'll find it.
Yeah. And she had come to stay with us, and she ran one of the Tahoe marathons. And I was like, oh, I think I could do that. I mean, you know, so, and I told myself, I said, I'm going to get online. And if there's a marathon that is like in the right training window from now, I'm going to do it. And I found this thing called California International Marathon in Sacramento. And and then, so I ran my first marathon, and that was great.
Yeah.
Yeah. And hard. And like your first marathon, I hurt more after my first road marathon than after finishing the Tahoe Rim Trail.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't walk downstairs. I could barely like walk to the hotel at the end.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've never really been a road runner, or I don't think I've ever done a road race more than 5K. So I can't even imagine. Yeah. Like for me, that's kind of like the thing I can't imagine myself ever doing, like running a road marathon. And to your point, like it's a totally different
Well,
thing, right?
I think you've just identified your challenge for
There
the
you go.
year.
This, I may be in for 2021. Who knows? I mean, it does have some appeal after seeing, going to the Boston Marathon as a spectator many times when I lived in New England, and seeing that it is inspirational. I think no matter what event you go to, like you see these things, and like we talked, I think with Rob Myers last time, or a couple times ago, like, I think I could do that. You kind of just get that in your head. And so then for you, did that sort of then start the whole process of, I know I look through your Ultra sign up as I do with all my guests, and like just seeing that kind of gradual buildup, month to month, year to year of those different distances. Like, obviously you got it in your head, like, now I'm going to try a 50K. Now it's a 100K or a 50 miler or whatever it is. Like, how did that all evolve?
I think I moved more slowly than a lot of ultra runners. I mean, I see a lot of people go 50K, 50 miler in the same first year. And people have a lot of capacity that's pretty phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm a little more, I'm cautious.
Mm-hmm.
And to admit to another kind of cliche, I read Born to Run. And then I was like, I gotta try trail running. But I mean, I live in Truckee, and there's trails steps from my house, but I didn't get it. Like, how do people run on these? And I didn't kind of really know. I didn't even know where to start. There was no running club here in Truckee at the time, and I didn't know anybody to talk to about it. I kind of knew this one woman, and you may have heard of her. Her name is Betsy Nye.
Absolutely.
But I was scared to death to ask her about it because she's Betsy Nye.
Mm-hmm.
And I certainly like wasn't going to run with her. And, but she and some of her friends put together a little ad hoc trail run. It was just kind of a small family fundraiser. And then I met somebody there who you will all have heard of as well, who is pretty famous for wanting to introduce people to trail running. So this was my first dirt trail run. It was something like 8 miles, mountainous. And I start trying to like run up this hill, and I'm trying to get to the top, and I'm just dying out of breath. And this guy like is walking, and like every time I have to die to catch my breath, he catches up with me. And then I run on the downhill, I get a little ahead of him, and then the whole thing happens again. At the end, the fellow says, "So you on Facebook?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Okay, my name's Jack Meyer." And of course, everybody knows Jack, the mayor of Forest Hill.
For sure.
Loves trail running and loves introducing people to trail running. And that was kind of the person that I asked my early questions to. And I was like, well, what's a good starter ultra? And he's like, oh man, you got the best ultra, the Tahoe Rim Trail endurance run. And like, he meant best, like best, not like best, like good for starting.
Right.
But I'm glad I started with that. And it's still a special race, and it's our hometown race, or Tahoe race. And so the ultras went from there, and that was my first 100 was at the Tahoe Rim Trail a few years later as well.
That was my first 100 last year. It's my only 100 so
Yay!
far. Yeah,
Wonderful.
it's a good one to start with, but I always would tell people last year, this is what I'm starting with, and they would say, "What? Are you kidding?" So yeah, definitely a challenging one though.
So I just want to bring up that I saw in the chat box a little discussion about the button-down cotton shirts. Now, I did listen to Kelly Barber's episode number 2, and I will say, highly recommend the cotton shirt. Snaps better than buttons.
All right. Do we need to unmute Kelly here for some commentary? Let's do that.
Hi, Kelly. How you doing? We'll see if
Unmute
see
here.
if he's allowed to talk. There you go.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, thanks for calling me out. I got a new source though. Columbia now is doing cotton, so.
Excellent. Good to know. I had a really lucky experience to crew and pace Kelly at the Vermont 100. And this was the summer that Kelly was doing the Grand Slam, which is a whole bunch of 100-mile races consecutively. And this is when I saw the cotton shirt in action, and it really worked beautifully.
Absolute. I think Mike, you might have one of those on order, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh yeah, I'm a big fan of the Pro Button shirts. Always have been.
Excellent. Hey, I see Adam Kimball on the call here. I know Adam runs for Rabbit. Maybe we better get Rabbit on the job here, doing some cotton with the pearl snaps. That's what we're looking for. That's what we want to run in. All right. Excellent. Sorry to hijack the conversation
No,
here.
no, it's all good. I just unmuted Adam if he's got any feedback on that.
So I want to introduce my friend Adam, who actually set an incredible fastest known time on the Tahoe Rim Trail. Just recently, he did his supported, but the incredible thing is that he beat the previous record holder, who was none other than Killian Hornet. So
Absolutely. Congratulations, Adam. That was spectacular. We
Yeah.
certainly would
Thank you.
be happy to chat with you too at some point. But I know you're already doing you've got a session scheduled on the DPMR site, correct?
Correct. Helen and I both.
Yeah, that'll be excellent. I'm definitely going to tune into that.
Yeah. And last thing, Helen, I'll see what Rabbit can do. Most of the stuff is not 100% cotton, but you know, there's always room for growth. So.
okay, excellent.
Perfect. So one thing I did want to ask you about, now you mentioned Betsy Nye, you met her. I ran with Betsy shortly during the Castle Peak 100K, my second 100K a couple years ago. I remember distinctly we were on the Hole in the Ground trail for a little while together. And I believe she asked me if I wanted to have a beer at the next aid station at the end of the Hole in the Ground. I declined, but I think that might have been a mistake because she then went on to trounce me. And I finished barely in that race that year. It was a really rough race for me. So I don't know. I think I may need to start taking some advice from her, obviously, because I didn't even know who she was at that moment, but she did mention like Leadville and some other things. And then I started hearing more about her and thought, wow, like, okay, I need to start listening. And so given that, like, what sorts of things did she and Jack kind of impart to you, you know, as you were kind of learning the ropes, and are these things that you would then pass on to other people?
Sure. Yeah. The most important thing I think I've learned from Betsy is just to train with your heart, just to go out and enjoy being in the mountains. And Betsy trains by doing a lot of volume at just enjoyment pace. And I haven't always adhered to that, but I think I'm returning back to that, and I think I'm plenty strong for it. So it's definitely a good. That's just her style of training. The other thing is amazing is that Betsy introduced me to all these amazing places, and in that way it introduced me to just what beautiful trails we have up here, but just how important it is to enjoy where you are and be connected to that way. So,
and would you say that was part of the reason that, and now you were like one of the founding members of DPMR, if I'm not mistaken, is that right?
Yeah, and then it was Betsy who even told me what was going on. She said, well, so I guess I should back up. Donner Party Mountain Runners is our running club. We were founded in 2014, so 6 years ago, more than 6.5 years now. And 2014 was a drought year. It was very super dry winter. So it was January, February. We were still trail running. And Betsy said, so, these trail runner guys are starting to start a club. I didn't really know any of them personally. I kind of knew of them. Mike Tubbett, who's another Tahoe Rim Trail fastest known time holder. Peter Fain, Pete Broomhall. Those were some of the founders. And so she said, yeah, they're talking about starting a running club. And I was like, oh, I don't know. I like running with you, Betsy. I'm good. I like, but then what I really wanted to see a race come to Truckee, because even though the Tahoe Rim Trail Endurance Run is a great race, I was like, Truckee has so many great trails. Why don't we have a race here? So that was part of my motivation. And another part was just to give trail runners a voice in Truckee, to have some representation with our local town government and other agencies. And I feel we were successful in that. So,
Yeah.
and, but what I didn't expect was just to be part of this amazing extended family. I never knew that would happen. It was great. It was the best part. So a year or two later, we actually amended our mission statement from to inform and inspire to inform, inspire, and connect, because it's so we found out that was so important to what we were doing.
Yeah, perfect. And I mean, I know you've got members all over, and I mean, not just in Truckee or that region. I mean, all the way down to the Bay Area. Like, I think we know Steve, one of your board members, he lives in like Mill Valley or somewhere down there.
Yeah, that's right. So we definitely are open our arms to anybody who just loves running here in Truckee and Tahoe.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I mean, so it's just a great way. And we've talked to other people over the last few episodes that, you know, do volunteering and advocacy and all these other things. I mean, there's so much more than just running, you know. I mean, like you said, the community aspect, and that's why we're doing this, is like, we want to keep this community tight, and we want to keep passing information back and forth and let people know about things and meet people they may not have run into ever before. And so, yeah, there's just, I feel like that for me also has been just one of the best parts about being in the trail running community, is just the people you meet and the places you go and hear about and get inspired by. And I know Mike and I, after every one of these, we talk about how much inspiration, you know, that guest was or something like that. So it's been great, for sure. And it sounds like you've had a good experience as well.
Absolutely.
Well, let's talk a little bit about inspiration, I guess. So, you know, we'll just say, like, the Tahoe Rim Trail fastest known time, FKT, if people have heard of that concept. You know, certainly this has been a huge achievement for your summer, I would guess. And you did it the previous year as well in a slightly different way. So can we just sort of talk generally about what FKTs are, if people don't know that, what the different types are, how did you hear about these, you know, what was your inspiration? And I guess just starting off with like a bunch of different questions related to that.
No problem. So a fastest known time is exactly what it sounds like on a given route. You go out in one of a few different modes, and you're basically racing the clock. So a few different ways to do it is, one way is supported. And so that's whatever that means to you. It's basically like doing an ultra race of one. Your aid station is your personal crew. You often would have a pacer with you. People meet you along the way. So the other more common way is unsupported, which is literally you carry all of your food with you, carry and or filter your water, and you're alone. So there's something in between that I ended up doing last year called self-supported, and I left cache boxes of my food and a couple little supplies like clean socks, sunscreen, bug spray, like huge luxuries, in bear boxes at trailheads. So I was able to go very light last year. And the reason I did that, I was just daunted by the water, by carrying my water. Tahoe Rim Trail has some really big sections that are dry. And I think that I needed to get a comfort level with being out there by myself. Last year, my biggest fear was just being cold and alone in the night, because both years I've slept. So I've just slept in a sleeping bag, and last year in a bivvy. So those are the ways you might do a fastest known time attempt. And as far as the Tahoe Rim Trail itself, for people listening who might not be familiar, it's a 171-mile loop. It's virtually all single track dirt trail up in the mountains above Tahoe. Has a reasonable amount of climbing, but not outrageous. I mean, it's definitely mountainous with a good deal of vertical, but it's not like hard rock vertical. So it's very, very beautiful. And you can, because it's a loop, you can start and finish anywhere you like. And I chose Tahoe City because it's one of the closer trailheads to our home in Truckee. That happens to be the official start finish. So that's kind of the route, and that's kind of the gig. And last year I ended up deciding to do it self-supported, and it was amazing. It was literally just like going on 3 days of like the best run you ever went by yourself. It's not to say there weren't times that I had lows or that I was scared, but overall it was a great experience. And what was really special to me about last year is that there was not a woman who had posted either an unsupported or self-supported time as of last year. So to know that I was out there doing something that a woman hadn't yet attempted to do by herself was special. So finishing last year was really special.
Yeah, very cool. I mean, in that case, I have seen some people also call that like the only known time, you know?
Yeah,
So
right. Yeah.
that's like, you've done the first one and that's it. Like no one else has done that. So that's a huge achievement on top of the fact that you're out there, like, you know, doing this thing. So when you're out there, I mean, well, first of all, was there any thought initially to try it as a supported run before you decided on self-supported, or were you just kind of thinking like, yeah, self-supported is the way?
So to go supported, you have to actually run. Like it's really hard. Like you have to work really hard. Like it's a lot more like being in a 171-mile race. And it just didn't resonate with me as much. And it's actually like a lot of logistics, so much so that it's a lot more logistics to go supported. So pretty much you have less flexibility because you're counting on your crew and your team. It's very much a team effort. So you're counting on them, and they have travel plans, potentially, you know, schedules to keep up. Whereas, so this year, for example, I was able to use my flexibility of going solo to adjust my timing to get a good weather window. So I bounce between a few different possible dates, but I'm very much a fair weather backpacker, sleeper, runner. I don't mind. I mean, if it's raining at a race, that's fine. You have the support of a race. But I enjoyed the flexibility of, I was able to move my run this year to go after we kind of broke out of this afternoon thunderstorm cycle. So
yeah,
nice.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. I hadn't thought about the fact that, yeah, with a supported run, you've got so many other dependencies, other people moving cars around, all these different things. And the fact that you went out and, if I read correctly, like the day or a couple days before, you basically drove around the entire lake, dropping all of your different cash boxes and everything, hiding them and making sure you knew where they were, hopefully. And I mean, that alone has got to be a little bit of obviously an effort, and just, yeah, just something difficult to do, I'm guessing, because then you had to research all the locations and make sure that you sort of had a plan of how far you're going to go and all of that. And it sounded like it worked out pretty well overall.
That's right, Greg. Last year, by going self-supported, that did involve driving all the way around Lake Tahoe, a pretty full day of dropping off cash boxes. And so it was great that this year, going unsupported, completely unsupported, and carrying everything with me was a whole nother level of like fun flexibility. Because and I didn't worry so much about where I was going to sleep. Last year I really wanted to sleep by the bear boxes, so everything was like safe and snug in there. Whereas this year it was just it was so flexible. That was made a big fun difference.
Definitely. Did you have to have, pretty serious contingency plans in place? And like, how did that all work in terms of the fact that you're, possibly out of cell range and just who knows what could happen out there? Like, how was was there any monitoring being done and people that could sort of see, progress and all that?
Sure. You might want to unmute my husband for this one. So I didn't have 100% flexibility in my timing because I still do have a husband and 2 teenagers at home who count on me to be fed and laundered and that kind of thing. So when I do these things, my husband Javier, he is tracking me with a satellite messenger, with a satellite tracker. And he stays awake the whole time I'm awake. And he doesn't go to sleep until I hit the button to send that text message that I'm going to sleep. And then he sleeps for a couple of hours and then he wakes up and he just sits and looks at the dot until it starts moving again.
Dedication there.
Well, you get the sense of if something is wrong because the satellite tracking is very delayed, right? So it takes 10 minutes, 20 minutes. In addition to the rate, it still takes time to be updated. So at the end, you are almost 20 minutes behind. But of looking to that dot, updating every 10 minutes or 20, depending on the time of when you are looking at, you get a sense after, especially this year was the second time, right? So we were experts on figuring out what was going on. Same thing for Adam. On Adam, I was looking over the dot too. So we got a sense if it was going fast or not, what was going on. Or even Candice, it was kind of almost the same. We were looking over all night, So yeah, it's a strange distance observation of what is going on a little bit.
Absolutely. Now, question about that that just popped in my head was, for an unsupported, is it allowable for someone to just basically be at a road crossing and say hi and say like, okay, you're safe? Or are you allowed to have like basically no contact? Like, are there like little nuances to the rules about different types of FKTs and such?
So I'm certainly no expert, but I understand that it's allowable if someone is at a road crossing. And you hit the nail on the head, the road crossing. Obviously they can't like hike in and hang out with you because that's not the point. And in fact, last year I had suggested if Javier felt like it, he could come and wave as I passed the final road crossing. In the end, I was glad he didn't, because I really just needed to focus on what I needed to do at that location. So it was nice that I didn't get out of my groove by him being there.
Yeah. No.
I feel like I should back up and explain the satellite tracker a little.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
So the device I carry, it's made by Garmin, and it's called Inreach. It's similar if you've heard of a Spot. Inreach it's a great device. think and Mike Turner is showing his, he has the
It is
mini
right
there.
The product placement.
And so what it does, I like the Inreach because it actually has a better satellite constellation supporting it.
Hmm.
So it's actually can transmit better. You put it in a tracking mode and it gets your GPS signal from the GPS satellites, a whole different constellation. And then it sends every 10 or 20 minutes, whatever you set it to, that location to a website, so that you can decide who has access to see where you are. And the device also has the ability to send these preset messages very easily. So for example, if I'm going to sleep, I push a button and it sends a message. Just says, I'm going to sleep now. You can also send just a text message. You can send it directly from the device. Or if you have your phone with you, you can have it paired to your phone. And then it's, even if you're out of cell phone signal, it's just like sending a text message. And finally, you can push and hold the SOS button, and it's just like calling 911. So make sure you really mean it.
Right. Yeah, I've been using a Spot for a few years, but it definitely would be interesting to check out some of those features because it doesn't have the texting capability like the same way. It's got basically outbound and that sort of thing.
We've even used actually Kelly Barber and Javier, my husband. So we did car swap run through Desolation Wilderness, where they ran in one direction and my girlfriend Leslie and I ran in the other direction. And we actually had two different Inreach devices texting to each other through the satellite. It was awesome.
That's cool.
Fun.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely seems like a good idea. I mean, I got mine, you know, my family doesn't live in the area. A few years ago, I was starting to do runs outside of cell range. And even when you're in cell range, even just some of the trails around Auburn, I mean, they get pretty remote pretty quickly. And
It's true.
yeah, it's just a good idea to have something there just in case, you know, the worst that you don't think of happens. And
Right.
especially where you're doing a multi-day effort, I mean, sleep deprivation has got to be an issue. You know, it sounded like you got some reasonable sleep from the report that I read. But you know, that isn't always the case. And you're out there kicking rocks all the time and tripping and, you know, all the fun things we do on the Tahoe trails. But yeah, it just seems like a good idea. A nice little insurance policy.
Right. And so last year I had my phone with me, and for the Tahoe Rim Trail and also the Pacific Crest Trail and also the Camino de Santiago, there's an excellent guide app. It's called Gut Hook, Guthook. And that's on your cell phone, and it tells you water sources. The map is offline. It tells you how many miles to the next trail crossing or whatever. It's a great app. It's only for it's literally a Tahoe Rim Trail guide, so it's only for certain routes. But I used that last year, and just from the experience that I've gained in the trail, both last year plus a lot more recon this year, I was able to go this year with no navigational help. So I didn't take my phone with me. I took the Inreach, which has a map on it if I needed it, and it does show the Tahoe Rim Trail. But I didn't need it. Once you know that like you're totally in charge of where you're going, once you know it's your job to stay on the route, you stay on the route.
Yeah. Did you have to do, or well, I'm guessing you probably did, but I'm guessing how many different recon runs and other types of, you know, research did you have to do before you decided last year, you know, like I'm going to attempt this?
Sure. Last year, I had not seen all of the trail by the time that I attempted it. There were still some sections I hadn't seen. This year I got super lucky, and my good girlfriends, they're the only people, let's see, they're the only people I've run with this year. Betsy, Leslie, and Diane decided they wanted to do the entire trail just in segments, 2 days a week. So I was able to do recon on over half the trail with organized shuttles. We self-shuttled.
Nice.
If you're gonna recon a trail, shuttle, being able to go point to point is huge help. You literally can cover twice the distance. Then at the last minute, like the final days before I left this year, my husband rode his bike up to check a water source for me, and my Diane ran to check a different water source. So that was really helpful for the really dry section. To know exactly that these really tiny trickles were still trickling was important.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, did you not have an issue then with water on those dry stretches, or did you?
I never went thirsty, but which I was overly cautious. The reality is I carried too much water. I carried too much stuff. I'm so cautious. And part of what happened because of that is I ran down one section with a really heavy, with probably the heaviest my pack was the whole time, because it was full of water. And I got pretty banged up the pack. I got pretty bad chafing on my back, and that hurt the next day. That's okay. That's about the worst I hurt. That's not bad.
Yeah, I mean, for that type of effort, for sure.
Yeah, it's a 24.5 mile stretch that's without water. And I was in that stretch primarily at night, which is, I think, worked really well. It wasn't necessarily planned, but it did work. And I had a backup plan. If I needed to, I was gonna drop down to Spooner Lake, which is a pretty solid mile out of the way, and you have to drop down. Not to mention, it's a really yucky place to drink water from. And so I was really happy I didn't have to do that.
Yeah. Does that affect the FKT if you diverge off the course at all, or how do they do that?
No, it's no big deal. I mean, you have to do the whole course. Doing extra is not a problem.
Right. It's like it's your option. If you want to add on, great.
Yeah, good for you. Go for it. And one way to mitigate it, all that would be like to start at Spooner Summit, which is the middle of the dry section. And if you do that, right, you've just split the dry section. Now your longest dry stretch is just 12 miles, 13 miles.
Yep.
So.
But yeah, to your point earlier, I mean, starting in Tahoe City, kind of convenient, it is officially like, isn't there a milepost 0 there for the whole loop or something like that?
There is. And if you use the Guthook app, it's kind of handy because mile 0 is actually your mile 0. Which is, I mean, it's a little minor convenience if,
Yeah.
So.
That's all good.
Sorry. Go ahead.
No,
people always ask me about my packing gear, and
Yeah.
so I'm happy to share
Yeah,
any of that if you like.
definitely.
So I've been using a 20-liter Solomon. It's a running pack, but it's 20 liters. It's big, so it's made for this kind of thing. It's an older model. I think now their models are more like a 15 liter, 25 liter, and beyond. What I love about this pack is it has this particular older model has a lot of front storage. So I can have 12 hours worth of food and 2 750-liter flasks in the front. And that works really nicely for me. I put my Inreach in kind of a side spot. I make sure that the antenna is facing back and that it has a really nice view of the sky. And I find that really helps with the tracking. And then I wear an extremely dorky waist pack. It's kind of a Solomon belt, but I like it again because it's just another way I have front access, and I keep my water filter in there because it's light, so it doesn't bang around too much, and I always have it handy. Sometimes I carry my flashlight in there too, just because it's just a convenient place to put it.
Yeah, I mean, for especially for an FKT attempt, I'm guessing every little minute that you can save, I mean, is a good thing. You know, if you're not having to take the pack off or reach awkwardly or do anything like that, you know, you're essentially going to save yourself a lot of time over that long.
It does add up, but honestly, you know, just days after I finished, Candace Burt finished 15 hours faster than me. So I don't think I should worry too much about losing a few minutes here and there.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was going to just touch on the fact that there's been a huge amount of activity in the FKT world on the TRT this summer. I mean, you actually lowered a previous record that was only set like a week before, if I'm not mistaken, or around that.
Yeah, I had somebody I hadn't no idea. It sounds like she's more of a fast packer by nature.
Mm-hmm.
A gal came from Montana, sight unseen, and did the trail unsupported. Her name was Fran, and she must be pretty darn tough because she was thirsty for a long time out there. It doesn't sound, and her weather wasn't great. That's why, like, I had waited.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't, but I don't think I didn't know that she had been out there until after I finished.
Oh, okay.
But I did know that Candace Burt was going for it, and she's really tough and experienced, and I wasn't willing to go without sleep.
Yeah.
And she was just balls out and just went for it. She's like, I knew if I did it like in the 60-hour time frame, I could do it without sleep. And I'm not convinced I could stay awake for that long.
Yeah. I mean, I was reading her updates, and I mean, she was hallucinating heavily at the end, and it sounded pretty grim out there. So.
Yeah, so she's really tough and courageous. I'm telling you. And then what kills me is she's still beating herself up because she just has in her mind she wants to do it in under 60.
Mm-hmm.
And she was, I don't remember exactly, but a smidgen over.
Mm-hmm.
So
well, we'll look for it next year, I'm sure, right?
Yeah, I'm sure I am sure she will be out there to try it again.
Yeah, no doubt. I know we have some questions. Every time we do one of these, there's so much to ask. I feel like I haven't even touched on everything that I wanted to, but I do have to give some time to the audience because it sounds like we've got some questions out there. So let's see, shall we unmute Mike and Jessica? I don't know if both of them or just Jessica has been working on some questions. What do you have, Jessica?
I have, Jack Meyer has a question from Facebook Live. He is asking, is there a particular reason you decided to do your FKT attempt clockwise direction versus counterclockwise?
Thank you, Jack. Wonderful question. And yes, there is. Because I never, ever in my life want to go down the rocks at Echo Lake ever again. So if you go counterclockwise, then you're going from Aloha to Echo Lake. It's very rocky, and it's no problem if you're just climbing up it, but it's several miles of very rocky terrain, like little rocks, like it's just not fun. So that's the main reason. Also, one more reason is I really like the start from Tahoe City. The first 40 miles to Tahoe to Mount Rose trailhead is almost all climbing. And I like that start. I like to get that climbing underway.
Nice and warmed up. Kelly Barber's up next, and he had a question about your pack. Can we unmute Kelly? There you go.
So Helen, what was your pack weight at its heaviest?
So I estimate at its heaviest that it was 20 pounds full of water. But I'll tell you, at the start, my pack itself was 17.3 pounds. And then that waist pack, I think I actually had 2 flashlights in there, was 1.3. So my total weight at the start was 18.6 pounds. That included my sleeping bag, which I carried with me the whole time. And this year I carried a little bit heavier sleeping bag that's rated to 20 Fahrenheit. And let's see, that was 36 ounces or 2¼ pounds for my sleeping gear.
That was my other question for you, was what's your favorite piece of equipment? Because I do know you like your sleep setup.
I'm not gonna say that sleeping bag is my favorite. It served me well this year, but last year, this is my favorite piece of equipment. I have a down sleeping quilt, and so it could be used as a bag, but it's designed to be used with a sleeping pad under you for warmth. And then last year I used it in a bivvy as well. So my sleep setup last year, wow, it was substantially heavier with the bivvy, the pad, and the quilt was almost 4 pounds. So I did save a lot of weight by not taking the bivvy this year.
It was warmer.
I was comfortable either way. You're so tired. It's not so hard just to lay down and sleep.
You don't want to get too comfortable sleeping though, right?
So both Mike Tebbett, who had fastest known unsupported time, and Candace both agree with that, like that their approach was to take almost nothing. Candace took just a foil emergency bivvy. And Mike has often told me that the key is to take these like short, like 1 to 10 minute trail naps, and getting cold is actually your friend because that wakes you up. So, and I did plan on sleeping. I did plan 3.5 to 4.5 hours each of the 2 nights I was out. I wasn't sure I was open to it not playing out that way, but that's actually exactly how it played out, and it was fine. But that's also 8-9 hours of sleeping, which Candace didn't indulge in. So her run was definitely much more painful than mine, I'm sure.
Awesome. We also have a couple questions from our Zoomers, and Scott is up. He has the next question. Let's see if I can unmute him.
So I think, is this Scott Roykes?
Yes.
So good friend of mine that I actually met at my very first ultra, the Tahoe Rim Trail Endurance Run, the 50K. And we were out there running our first ultras together. And here we are, still friends. Scott has since transformed himself into the most phenomenal photographer. So if you've seen Castle Peak photos that are amazing from Castle Peak 100K or from many of the 200-mile races, if you think they're super amazing photos, probably Scott created them. Hi, how are you? Nice to see you.
You can mute me now.
No. Awesome.
I am good, coming to you live from my van in the streets of Minneapolis.
All right.
Uh-oh.
And I was definitely got to the point of walking in those last 7 miles. But getting to know you over the years, you have a lot of experience. Oh, it says I'm unstable. Is it going again?
It's a
Okay,
little bit
okay.
unstable, yeah.
Okay. Well, you have a lot of experience in having to go fast, like winning I Am Tough, for over 100-mile distance, versus in other races where you've done I just know that one very well with you and Kelly. And events like this, where it's a much longer duration, but you still have a high output, how do you approach the mental piece of that to have to pull your body back and not push that edge? Do you start to build that up in training, or is it just an uncomfortable feeling while you're out there that you want to keep on going faster, but you have to hold yourself back?
So what you just said is the most important thing in training and execution to me. That when people say, oh, it's 80% mental and the other 80% is physical, it's true, but I want to be more specific than that, and that I actually train for this. So I use my breath in several different ways. And one way is that I actually for the last couple of years, I've actually trained to improve my breathing, to improve my running capacity, and my output and efficiency. So that's one way. Another way that I use my breath is as a built-in, like, part of my body heart rate monitor. It's better. Heart rate monitors are a second-degree measurement tool. They're using your heart rate to measure your effort, whereas I just go directly to the source, and I use my breath to monitor my effort. So my goal is always to keep my breath in the right range. I use a system called Rhythmic Breathing for runners. So I use my breath as an effort monitor. And there's a third way that I use my breath, which is completely different than the other two ways. And that I use it as a traditional focal point for, like, mindful meditation. And I actually do that while I practice that while I'm running as well. And I've been doing that for a couple of years as well. And all of these things I practice and I do in training. So that's how I use my breath and the mental techniques, and of lots of other mental techniques like counting, little mantras or little sayings to keep me on track. But I found that the mindful traditions have really resonated with me and helped me to just really enjoy these times on the trail and get through them. So thank you for asking that. Appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. Good to see everybody.
Thank you, Scott. And next up we have Mike. Do you still have a question?
I do have a couple questions. One is just about that breathing. I find my breath is associated with my steps. Is your breath associated with your steps, or is it disconnected from your steps? Because I can imagine if you can disconnect it from your pattern of steps, and maybe you can expand it at a different scale. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, but the system that I use is to do an odd, so that I'm timed with an odd. I exhale at an odd intervals with respect to my steps. And the reason that I do that is because when you're exhaling, your diaphragm is relaxed, and so it's less stable. So what I want to do by doing an odd number of steps is I want that exhale to alternate sides of my body.
That's interesting.
And so if I bet everyone who's listening gets injured on the same side of their body, or it's always like your left knee and your right hip. So, or your right knee and your left hip. And there's a good chance it's probably related to what side you tend to exhale on. And I've noticed, like, when you first start this, you have a pattern. And it's most people's pattern is probably inhale for 2, exhale for 2. And if you observe, you'll probably find that you always exhale on the same side, on the same step.
That's interesting.
So, and there's the technique goes, there's some other nuances to the technique, but it's fundamentally quite simple. And it takes practice on like a smooth path or a treadmill for, a couple weeks. And then eventually it's just how you breathe when you run.
Is this something that is online that people could look up, or is this something that you and your running people have kind of developed, or is there a name for it? Or
it's I have to find the guy's name. There is a book, and there's 1 or 2 articles online. Actually, on the Donner Party Mountain Runners, there's a blog post I wrote last year about breathing for runners, and I reference it there.
Okay, we'll look it up. Yeah, that'd be interesting to read that.
That's something we can post on our page and on the show notes for the podcast version as well.
Sure, thanks.
And my other question is about, so the previous year you had bear cans, and you said you tried to plan it where you were at the bear can when you were done for the day. So was your sleeping gear in each bear can? Do you have a different sleep system, or did you carry the sleep system and only had the food in the bear can?
Correct. I carried the sleep system last year as well, until the final 40 miles. And I was like, oh, I got this. And I left it in the second from the last bear can. I want to bring up how much my total pack weight last year with the bear cans was, it was substantially less. It was 5 pounds less. So it was 12.8, and then the waist pack was exactly the same at 1.3. But this is good news, because this means if you're out there and say you want to do some big adventure, but you don't want to make an FKT, you just want to go see a really awesome part of trail, or you want to go explore the Tahoe Rim Trail or the Pacific Crest Trail, check out where those trailheads are. And if you use bear cans, really important that you use odor-proof bags. Put your food inside odor-proof bags, so that the critters don't smell it and start, pushing, playing games with your bear canister. And so it's good news, because I think that is a way to make these kinds of adventures really accessible to a lot more people. You don't have to carry this huge pack. You might not even own a pack, or you might not want to sleep outside on the ground in a sleeping bag. That's okay. Not everybody has to do that to, have fun exploring. It's all about what resonates for you. There's a psychologist who studies happiness. He spent his career studying happiness. His name is Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, and what he has found in a lifetime of studying is that what makes people happy is doing something that's difficult and purposeful. So I got the difficult part where I feel it's just the right level of difficulty for me. I'm still not sure if running the Tahoe Rim Trail is purposeful. I'm thinking about that still. But whatever, there's different ways that a challenge can resonate for different people. I want people to know that not everybody needs to run the Tahoe Rim Trail to have a great adventure.
I think right now, the idea of having purpose is important, because a lot of us pick a race and we train, and the purpose is, you got to focus, but races being canceled and events being canceled and gatherings canceled, having a purpose is probably really important right now.
You guys mentioned that you did the backyard ultra, and I really like that idea, because maybe the purpose is showing that you can be resilient in the face of whatever is going on. Maybe the purpose is showing that you can be creative and finding different ways or places to run.
Yeah, I know for Mike and myself, I mean, just the amount of exploring we've done up in the North Fork of the American River Canyon this year is just off the scale, just finding new trails, trying new things. That for me has been a real good motivator, I think, every weekend to think, wow, like, what's the next thing that we're going to go out and explore this weekend, That actually segues nicely to something that I want to touch on before we end, though, which is your daughter's on the line. And I know that you mentioned that you or she, and I'm going to unmute her because I want to find out directly from her about this Truckee Tahoe Peaks Project website. And Clara, would you like to talk to us a little bit about that?
Of course. So Truckee Tahoe Peaks Project, it's a challenge, and this is the first year that we're doing it, and we have a list of 20 local peaks in the area, and you set a goal of however many peaks you want to do over the summer. You don't have to pick specifically which ones. You don't have to do all 20. You can just pick whatever number you're comfortable with and use that as your goal. And some of them are pretty easy, like Martis Peaks, Sardine Peak, and others are a little bit more challenging. Like we have like Friel and Relay, and they're like all around Truckee and Tahoe. Like there's a large variety of peaks, and at the moment we have, let me check the spreadsheet real quick.
So a little context here. Even though Clara and Alex are kids, I would say they haven't been necessarily willing participants in outdoor hiking all the time.
I'm willing now.
She is very willing now. And I think a little bit, Clara, you can tell me if you agree with this. Mm-hmm. I think a little bit of what flipped the switch is that during the stay-at-home orders, we started doing daily walks at 4 p.m. every day. And then next thing you know, wow, one kid's mountain biking on his own every day, and the other is like, let's do this peak thing, and we're getting after it. So
yeah. So at the moment we have 35 members doing the challenge. And so this year, this may change. What you do is you sign up at thelift.com, and I'll send
actually, I think they can go to your website.
Oh yeah. The website has a link to it too.
I just posted in the chat, and I'll definitely link to that.
Great. It's in the chat.
Claire's just starting that website, so
it's a little bit unfinished, but you can do everything you need to do there. And basically, you put in your name and the amount of peaks you want to do, and it automatically updates the amount of peaks you've done.
Clara, can you just tell us what was the hardest peak adventure you've done so far this summer?
It was definitely this round a little bit more than 13-mile overnight I've done more than 13 miles in a single day trip before hiking, but it was really hard with the pack because we were doing the Warren Lake Loop and we got both Castle and Basin on the same day. And going up Castle with the pack, even with poles, was rough.
Yeah, we can.
But we had good weather. We had really good weather too. I can't imagine what I would do if I was going up that when it was really hot.
Right. And so I know that we have a lot of Castle Peak 100K finishers here with us today. So the route that we did was the reverse of the way that Castle Peak 100K route goes to Basin and Castle Peak. So good job, Clara. I'm really proud of you. Thank you.
Good job.
Yeah.
It's huge.
You know, and actually during that overnight, Betsy and I and her daughter Lizzie, they were doing an overnight on the Warren Lake Loop, and they had started the day before and were going the opposite way. And we ran into them on at the summit of Castle Peak.
Oh, wow.
It was amazing with all 4 of their dogs.
Yeah, definitely one of my favorite places to go up in the Tahoe area. It's just such a great mountain.
Yeah.
Mike and I ran that ridge between Basin and Castle 4 or 5 years ago now, I think. That was one of our early runs together. And yeah, it was just like a great place to be and to explore. So congratulations on setting up that website. I think, yeah, like, again, like just in terms of purpose, like giving people some goals. I know personally, like we told you, and you mentioned, Helen, like doing the Backyard Ultra, doing these other virtual races. I think 10 miles away from finishing the virtual race across Tennessee. So I'm hoping to get that in the next day or two. It's just been a good way to kind of give myself a little way to motivate every day. And like you did with the TRT at FKT, just having these big goals out there, or not even huge goals. I mean, just whatever it takes you to get out and just think of something that, you know, is interesting to you is a great way to kind of stay with it, keep going throughout this whole thing. And eventually we're going to come out of it.
I agree. Races will be back, but we're all hopefully just getting out and finding ways to stay motivated in the meanwhile.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what Ultra is all about, right? You know, we just keep pressing forward. Well, I really want to thank you, Helen, for joining us, Javier and Clara and everyone else who participated here. Some anecdotes tonight. You know, as usual, could spend hours, but we'll be looking for that next big achievement. I'm sure we'll post links to a lot of the different sites and other things that we talked about tonight. And thanks again, everybody, for joining us. Thanks again to Paulo at the aid station. Go down and visit him. We really appreciate his support, and we'll see you again in a couple of weeks. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks so much, Greg and Mike and Jessica and everyone for spending over an hour of your time with us. Thank you.
Oh yeah, no doubt. Much appreciated. Bye-bye.
Okay, thanks guys. Thanks, Jess.